It was raining, not a storm, just that cold, annoying drizzle that turned sidewalks into slick mirrors. Sarah had just picked up coffee and was about to cross 8th and Main when she noticed the man. He was soaked. His army jacket clung to his frame, the patches barely visible under grime and time. But he wasn't begging or shouting or even asking. He was searching, frantically. His hands cupped around his mouth, he called out again and again, "Buddy, buddy." And something in the way he said it stopped her. Sarah Lindstrom had volunteered at Second Chance Animal Shelter for 3 years. She'd seen the heartbreak that surrendered when families couldn't afford them, animals abandoned when life got complicated, the occasional miracle reunion that reminded her why she kept coming back. But the desperation in this man's voice cut through everything else. She approached carefully, her coffee growing cold in her hands. "Excuse me, are you looking for someone?" He turned, and she saw his face clearly for the first time. Late 30s, maybe early 40s, with the kind of weariness that goes bone deep. His eyes held that particular combination of hypervigilance and exhaustion she'd learned to recognize in trauma survivors. "My dog," he said, voice hoarse from calling. "German Shepherd. His name's Buddy. He's all I got." The man introduced himself as Mike Owens, Sergeant Michael J. Owens. He corrected with military precision. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Honorably discharged 4 years ago. The transition home had been brutal. PTSD episodes that made employment impossible. Medical bills that swallowed his disability payments. A gradual slide from apartment to car to street that happened faster than he could stop it. Buddy wasn't just a pet. He was a trained service animal who could sense Mike's panic attacks before they started, wake him from nightmares, remind him to take medication when dissociation made time disappear. The dog was literally the difference between survival and surrender. "I tied him outside Murphy's Diner while I used the restroom," Mike explained, his hands shaking slightly. "Couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. When I came out," his voice broke. "Someone cut the leash, clean cut. This wasn't an accident." Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, that moment when a stranger's crisis becomes your own responsibility. She pulled out her phone without hesitation. "Tell me everything about Buddy. Age, markings, behavior, and give me your number. We're going to find him." Sarah understood trauma from her years at the shelter. Animals came in carrying invisible wounds, and so did their owners. She recognized the particular terror in Mike's eyes, not just loss, but the fear of losing the one thing keeping him tethered to the world. She started with the basics. Photos of Buddy posted to every local Facebook group, flyers printed at her own expense, calls to every veterinary clinic and animal shelter within a 50-mile radius. But she also did something more as she told Mike's story, not for sympathy, but for action. The response surprised even her. A gas station clerk on Oak Street remembered seeing a German Shepherd running toward the rail yard, limping, but determined. A barista at Corner Coffee swore someone had tried to sell a military-looking dog outside the shopping center on Tuesday. An elderly woman called to say she'd found fresh paw prints in her garden, too big for her neighbor's golden retriever. Each lead led to another. Sarah coordinated search parties through text chains that grew organically. People she'd never met started showing up with leashes and treats, calling Buddy's name in alleys and abandoned lots. The search had become something larger than one woman helping one veteran. It had become proof that community still existed when it mattered. On the 3rd day, Carol Martinez called. She ran an informal foster network from her house on the south side, taking in strays until permanent homes could be found. "A German Shepherd showed up at my place this morning," she said. "No collar, but he's clearly trained. Military trained, if I had to guess. Won't eat until I give him permission. Sits at perfect attention. And Sarah, he's been looking at every car that passes, like he's waiting for someone." Sarah picked up Mike in her Honda Civic, and they drove across town in nervous silence. She could feel his tension radiating through the car, hope and terror balanced on a knife's edge. What if it wasn't Buddy? What if it was Buddy, but he'd been hurt? What if the 3 days had changed something essential between man and dog? Carol's house sat behind a chain-link fence crowded with rescue animals. The moment Sarah parked, a German Shepherd appeared at the gate, as if summoned by instinct. Even from the car, they could see his tail beginning to move. Mike opened his door and whispered, Buddy? The dog's entire body convulsed with recognition. He pressed against the fence, whining in a pitch Sarah had never heard, before pure joy mixed with desperate relief. Mike fell to his knees as Carol unlocked the gate. Buddy didn't bound or leap. He moved with the careful precision of a service animal, but once he reached Mike, precision dissolved into pure emotion. Dog and man collapsed together on the wet grass, Mike's face buried in Buddy's fur, both of them shaking. "They haven't moved in 10 minutes, Carol whispered to Sarah, wiping her eyes. Sarah just nodded, feeling like she was witnessing something sacred. This wasn't just a pet reunion, it was a lifeline being restored. When Mike finally looked up, his face was streaked with tears and mud. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You don't have to," Sarah replied. "Just take care of each other." The story spread organically through social media, not because Sarah sought attention, but because people needed to see goodness in action. Mike and Buddy became familiar figures around downtown, the veteran and his shepherd walking with renewed purpose. Sarah helped connect Mike with resources: a veterinarian who donated Buddy's care, a social worker who understood military trauma, a temporary housing program with pets allowed. A week after the reunion, an official envelope arrived at the animal shelter, bearing the seal of the Department of Defense. Sarah opened it with curious hands. "To Miss Sarah Lindstrom, we have been made aware of your assistance to Sergeant Michael J. Owens, United States Army, retired, in recovering his service animal. While your actions may have felt routine, their impact was significant. Sergeant Owens was scheduled for a mandatory wellness check following missed appointments with VA services. Your intervention occurred during a critical period when he was classified as high risk for self-harm. The successful reunion with his service animal has resulted in his re-engagement with support services and stabilization of his mental health status. Please accept this civilian commendation, not merely as recognition, but as acknowledgement that individual acts of compassion often accomplish what institutional systems cannot. Respectfully, Colonel Patricia Hayes, Office of Veteran Affairs." Enclosed was a formal certificate, but more importantly, a reminder that her choice to stop and listen had rippled through bureaucratic systems designed to help, but often failing to see individuals clearly. 2 years later, the Buddy Drive program had expanded to 3 shelters across the city. Sarah had been invited to speak at veterans conferences about grassroots support networks. The Pentagon letter remained framed above her desk, but now it was surrounded by photos. Mike and Buddy at his new apartment, veterans and their pets at monthly gatherings, volunteers whose own lives had been enriched by service. The most meaningful recognition, though, came in smaller moments. A veteran who finally sought therapy after finding community at a Buddy Drive. A dog who received life-saving surgery through the program's emergency fund. A volunteer who discovered their calling while helping others heal. On rainy Tuesday mornings, Sarah still thought about that first encounter on 8th and Main. How easily she could have kept walking, coffee in hand, focused on her own agenda. How one moment of choosing to engage rather than avoid had created ripples that touched dozens of lives. She'd learned that heroism wasn't dramatic or complicated. Sometimes it was just stopping when you could keep going, listening when you could ignore, acting when inaction was easier. In her car, she kept a small card with Mike's words written in his careful handwriting. "You stopped when the world kept walking." That made all the difference. Because sometimes, the most profound changes begin with the simplest choice: to see someone who needs to be seen. And in a world that often teaches us to look away, that choice repeated daily by ordinary people in extraordinary moments was how community got built, one connection at a time.